Who's got the COVID?
Jessica,
Actually,
Jessica,
I do. I do actually have.
Do you really?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I don't want to lie to y'all.
Sorry we were kidding about it. Are you
Oh,
okay?
wow.
Yeah, I'm better. I'm better.
What-
It's just that cough is just the last thing to go, I guess.
What is it? I mean, has it been horrible or has it just been the cough, and how's it been for you?
Well, it got a little rough for a couple of days. Just everything in my body hurt. Just everything.
Yeah.
You know, it's like when you have the flu, you have aches and pains, but it's like aches and pains on steroids.
Yeah.
That was the worst part, was just that my back and everything just hurt so bad, and then running a fever and all that. But that and the aches and pains and the cough has been the bad thing, because the coughing, my chest burns really bad when I cough. So, but they gave me a steroid and that seemed to help. So, but I think I'm on the upward swing now. So,
When did you contract it?
my mother-in-law had it, and then she kept my little girl. And that was, let's see, I'm sure my little girl got diagnosed the first week in February, and I got diagnosed last Thursday.
Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Wow.
no.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yeah.
So
You
that
know,
was a nice gift. Nice gift from your mother-in-law and your child.
I'm telling you. Yeah. Yeah, I thought I was going to be one of the lucky ones too, because, you know, we were, you know, seemed like we were all getting through this, you know, but
You jinxed yourself.
Oof.
I'm just glad I'm not one of the, you know, there's a lot of people even that we know that have really been suffering with
Yeah.
it really bad. So I consider myself very lucky.
Well, thank God. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how does that work? Like, do you have to go back and get tested again after being tested positive?
I think it used to be that way, but now I can go back to work Monday as long as I don't have any fevers or anything like that for 24 hours. I can go back to work Monday. So it's 10 days
Okay.
from the time you test positive.
You don't have to go back and be retested to show that you're still or negative.
I think you used to, but not anymore.
God bless.
The people that actually that don't test positive and they're quarantined in the home, they tend to have it worse, because they have to get tested several times, and they can't go back until 10 days from the last day that the infected person had to quarantine. So that ends up being like 24 days.
Yeah.
So,
Just for your
Like a
information,
horrible cycle.
you're all live.
yeah.
Yeah. Crazy. It's about a minute, almost a minute till. Do we have a quorum? Yeah, Doug.
Yes, everybody's
Jacqueline?
here.
Huh?
Yes, everyone's here except
Everyone's
Jerry,
here?
and he
Okay.
won't be here.
Who won't be here?
That's right.
Who?
Jerry Wallace.
Oh, he's still new to me, to the board. I'm like, who are you talking about? Okay. Well, let's go ahead and call this meeting of the Conway State of Conway Community Appearance Board meeting to order. I think I said that twice. May I have a motion to approve the minutes or any changes?
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. And let's go on to Mr. Mark Timms.
Hello.
Hey,
It's nice to see familiar faces.
I know.
Yeah, I'll just give a quick rundown of this, and I'm gonna turn it over to him and let him do most of the talking. But this is just a conceptual review, so this will come back for preliminary and final review. This is just to get some initial comments from the board, if there is any. But what they're wanting to do is demolish the building that's beside the bank, and they're gonna build a new teller pavilion and do associated site work, and that's at 500 Main Street. And I have included the slides that was also provided to you in your packet. But I'll go ahead and go through here, and I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. Timms.
Thank you so much. Great introduction. Hello to everyone.
Hey, Larry.
Hey.
Do I look like Larry? Yep, Dad is. I wish Dad were around today. We got him stuck at home. What I'd like to do is just kind of walk through what this property opportunity is. The bank approached us after the last round of doing the work on the property we did a number of years ago with the restoration of the prior office / prior service station into what is now the current Anderson Brothers Bank, and wanted to explore ways to mitigate some challenges that the house has presented to them, as well as better traffic flow for the property. And what came out of that workshop with the bank is an opportunity to perhaps remove the problem that was just escalating in age and problem, and create something that would be a better neighbor to the street, to the community, and improve traffic flow, not just for the bank property, but also how customers enter and exit the property from Fifth Avenue and from Main Street. So this existing slide that you see here, you can see the existing bank on the right, the house to the left. There's currently a exit drive sandwiched between them that comes out right beside the oak tree. Not a very friendly neighbor to the oak tree either. So that became our focus, is how do we improve everything that I've just discussed, as well as make the life a little bit better for the oak tree itself, where it sits. So I'll draw your attention to the brick walk in the lower right-hand photograph that comes out of the front of the existing house. That is essentially the target zone for what we will suggest as a new exit drive. And you can go to the next slide. Oh, one more thing. Yeah, there we go. So the key here is this is the existing site plan. You'll notice the existing house hatched on the upper part of the site plan, the existing bank on the lower portion of the site plan. And all the traffic flow enters either on the far corner off of Main into the drive-through, which is on the right side of the bottom edge of this page of the bank structure now, or into Fifth Avenue in the parking to the rear. You can exit back out Fifth Avenue, obviously, but a lot of people also exit back out the exit drive on Main onto the bottom side of the tree. So what we reconfigured, you can go to the next slide, is to start with the oak tree and really take out that existing exit drive. And you can see it hatched in lighter green there between the bank and the tree, and create a much larger, softer landscape bed around the oak tree. And to move the teller, which is currently on the Fifth Avenue side of the bank structure, to the north side, and create a teller pavilion that would replace the house. This allows us to consolidate the stacking that occurs at the teller right now, and does create some traffic challenges off of Main Street, because the cars that are coming out off Main are challenged by how to get in line if there's more than a few cars there. So this would remove that and move that stacking to the rear of the property. It would increase the buffer zone to the adjacent property to the north. As I said before, it would increase the buffer around the oak tree and along the north side of the existing bank. We actually would be removing 2 parking spaces in this, but we realized in the conversations with the bank, they don't have a parking problem. They have a drive-through problem and a traffic flow problem. So this really was a way to solve all of that and actually reduce the parking on the site, but increase the ability to traffic manage the site much better using the back portion of the site rather than the front, which is what traffic flow currently does with the drop-off. A couple other notes: the night deposit would still stay on the south side of the bank. It would be sitting in its current location adjacent to that teller, but the teller would go away within the bank, and it would be replaced by an ATM station using the same queue that's there now. You could roll to the next slide. We did want to incorporate an elevation. As she said, this is very early for us. This is actually a feasibility study for us to test the waters with DOT, who moved wet meth. They've been favorable. With the city staff, they've been great and favorable. And obviously with the bank stakeholder, they are obviously in favor. Of course, I do know the property owner as well, so that helps too. you can see the teller expansion to the left. You can see the existing bank to the right. Architecturally, we'd be integrating it, utilizing the language that we adapted into the original bank structure with canopies, same metal roof, trim, same painted brick. So the structure would feel like it's an extension of the existing bank. And last slide, or a couple of last slides. These just show the rendering, as you could see.
That's
what
nice.
the new teller would produce. It would be a blended architectural elements. You can see it in the context. It's really tucked in around the corner there, and you really get an enhanced landscape opportunity around the oak tree. You can move to the last slide. That gives a little bit better, bigger view. Oh, that may have been the last one. Okay. So you get a better view up on the upper right of just how much more landscape we can get around that oak tree and offer a better watering bed for that. We'll work with obviously Wanda with the city and make sure we get under structures to the drive that are appropriate for the oak for root growth and be friendly to the tree, and certainly open up for your feedback. We have presented today for that purpose to round out the feasibility study, go back to the bank, and hopefully enter into a full-fledged project from all the great feedback we received. So that's why we're here.
So, are you going to be adding the trees and the hedges that I see in the rendering on the left side? Because the top one is obviously sort of a rendering from the original location
right.
now, right? So is that bottom? Okay. Like, so that'll be.
We would follow your buffer requirements for the buffer zone. It's a 10-foot zone over there minimum. We would average actually over that through the expanse from front to back, just the way the property and the drive would work. We would follow the understory and canopy tree replacements. Obviously, with existing oak trees, we want to work with you on what's appropriately placed around the existing canopy trees and either distribute the calipers other locations or just make sure we satisfy the intent of that buffer.
That building of your mom's where they are now, that's not over 50 years old, is it? That you're wanting to demolish?
The original gas station would be. The house is, I'll have to get the exact date on it. It's probably close, but I don't think I think it was the 60s, so it's possible. I don't know the exact date. 67, 68.
Jessica, is there anything there that, I mean, is of concern? I mean, I like the way this looks, but is there anything of the length of time that the building's been there of concern for downtown?
Well, it would just be up to you. I mean, there's, criteria for demolition of buildings that are within a historic design review district, and that you would, review them to make sure that removing that structure would comply with those conditions. One of the things is having an immediate plan in place to, for that area where the structure is going to be removed. I'm trying to see if I can pull those up.
And we do work quite a bit with historic properties, and one of the evaluations we always come across is the contributing structure to the inherent character of that street. And obviously, Main Street is a transitional street. It has both commercial and residential in it. This property actually is that hinge point where it makes that transition right here. So if anything, because the property has already been consolidated, we would be unifying that transition from commercial to residential cleanly, rather than trying to have an object that doesn't know which family it belongs to sitting on the site, which is what the house does. It, just from the bank's position and from my mother's position as the owner, neither have any interest in preserving the house itself.
No.
So
I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, I mean, because this obviously looks more aesthetically pleasing than the two together that sort of don't seem to really go together.
And that's often how we approach it with the department of, when working with archives or any of the other groups we work with so much. If you are going into the realm of demolition of a structure, even if it is of that age, it's the contributing character that starts to take over. And, we feel like we're carrying the same mantle that the house, in a sense, previously did, since we're occupying a similar footprint and scale, and being residential in nature. A pavilion is an intentional word to use here, because the structure itself is more residential scaled, and marrying it to the character of the bank, in a sense, preserves what the intent was for that contributing overlay. At the same time, it erodes and takes away the pieces that may not be contributing that much. They just were occupying space.
Mhm.
And just to add to that, this property is actually, it's a little bit weird compared to the rest of this area, because this is the last parcel that zones Central Business District. And it's also, even though it's on the, in the main street overlay, it's also the last parcel that's in the commercial historic downtown or commercial district versus being in the Main Street district. And there's actually was an amendment done in 2017 to allow banks to have drive-through facilities as long as the CAB approved it. So this is just that one little property that sits on the corner right there that zones Central Business District, and everything else after that is more of your professional zoning districts or neighborhood commercial zoning districts. But there are criteria. Some of them is just, if you're going to be demolishing a structure 50 years or older, there's a list of things that I put in your packet that you could use in order to determining whether or not that structure should be demolished or removed.
Mr. Timms, hi, Jacqueline Kurlowski. Thanks for the great presentation. Hi, I have a question about just for clarification, on the last picture in the packet, is that like, I'm going to call it the pavilion. Is that for 2 cars or under that roof? And then is there going to be like a teller window up against the building?
It's a great question. I should have clarified that. There is not a teller window. These are actual digital teller stations. So there isn't someone in the house looking out at you that is your teller interface. There are offices that are there on that side now looking out of the bank that overlook this area, but those will not be occupied by tellers. The digital interface is all virtual. It's kind of like what we're doing right now. And the desk, it will still remain on the south side of the bank building with multiple digital stations inside the bank behind the counter, but they're talking directly and visually with the customers in the drive-through. To answer your other question, so there is a landscape bed now that would occupy that against the house or against the bank there. That car you see coming up is the bypass lane. And if you go back to the site plan, that's an important thing I kind of glossed over. The bypass lane, if you think about most banks, is usually on the far outside of the teller pavilion stacking. And so that you can get around in case you change your mind or have to leave from the line that you're in. This one we're flipping and centralizing so that it can also serve the parking that's already behind the bank. So rather than building a congestion or a dead end parking area, we wanted to keep traffic moving. So someone can come in and actually leave through that bypass lane from the parking area, the lower parking area, or bypass the teller lanes as well. So it kind of centralizes and gives an exit point for everyone.
So a sign that would say like exit to Main, they would know to use
That's
that
right.
lane. Okay.
Yeah, we would.
So it's a
signage is crucial for this. Go ahead. Yeah. Please.
So a two car pavilion. Yeah.
You'll see actually three teller lanes. You have there's 3 columns, so there's 2 lanes under the structure. The third lane is just outside of the structure, but it actually has a cantilevered roof awning over it, similar to the ones that are in the bank. So they're all covered. Great. But we wanted to keep the scale of it somewhat intimate rather than trying to build the same pavilion to cover everyone. The pavilion is actually smaller. It covers the 2 center lanes. The third lane is covered by an extended canopy. It keeps the scale smaller.
Great. And so I guess
Obviously, I don't read. Oh, go ahead. No, go ahead.
Sorry, this is all kind of leading up to my question. I just can't tell. So if you look at the house and the brick pathway, will these 3 lanes for cars all feed into like one narrow, like driveway size exit, or will it be like
it's a great question too.
I'm just wondering for size and scale, if you're gonna have these 3 lanes and then I like the idea of it bottlenecking very narrowly back out into Main, but I don't know if that
It's a-
serves your traffic issue. I'm just curious on like.
No,
how-
it may.
Yeah.
That's another great question. You're nailing all the great ones. The down
That's
at the
why I'm
bottom.
here.
That's why you're there. At the bottom, coming in off Fifth, you can see a typical 2-lane entrance and exit width, and you can see that's a similar width that we're showing leaving out at Main Street on the far left, up or above the oak tree. We were actually in discussions with DOT on this in early stages with them. They're actually have also gone out to the site, so we expect to have another conversation with them after that. There's 2 floating concepts on this, so it's not fixed in stone with this one. The 2 lanes that are there would allow obviously a left turn or right turn, so it keeps traffic flowing out of the queue lines that are in the. You don't get a bottleneck behind it waiting on somebody to turn left that can't turn left, and we all know what Main Street traffic can be right there at certain hours of the day. So there's really 3 options on the table. We keep it 2 lanes and we use signage to deter turning left during certain hours. We reduce it to 1 lane. So that was for option 1. Second option, we reduce it to 1 lane, still allow turning either way without any restrictions. But that gets a little challenging on the internal side of the site for getting people out. Or we just go ahead and say right turn only. That's third option, and narrow it to a single exit drive. We're still it'll take a traffic study to analyze which one of these 3 options is best for Main Street, for traffic flow, for on-site, off-site. Which one will float to the top, but all 3 are on the table right now. So the variables we do know of. Go ahead. The one thing we do know is, you can see this lane is underneath the oak tree. It currently is underneath the oak tree on the other side. We're moving it to the opposite side. They're further away, not much further away. It is further away from the intersection, which is a key point to DOT. We do want to do underground substructure for the roots, which I mentioned, and pervious pavers throughout this area to improve the root structure of the trees as well, regardless of which of those 3 options happen for the drive.
A note about the trees before I pass it off to Heather.
Yeah.
Just for height wise, like tall trucks and vehicles, I guess that would affect the height of your pavilion as well.
It will.
Okay.
We
great.
can restrict obviously traffic with our pavilion first. Okay. Talking with the city arborist, she's obviously recommending something we do most of the time anyway with signature trees like this is well in advance, even during the design stage, we'll go ahead and issue a pruning exercise on the tree to get it ready for any kind of shock that it may undergo as we rip out the paving that's on top of its roots and prepare a better, landscape bed on top. That can be a time to make sure we have a reasonable clearance for vehicles, but we're under no circumstances we're looking to limit up. If we want to preserve the tree, it's the feature, as we all know.
Very much so. Okay, so that lane that is currently the Taylor window, and I don't see that you're eliminating that you're still allowing people, or maybe I'm looking at this wrong, allowing people to come in at that area on Fifth Avenue?
Correct. So as you may recall from the prior project, this was the location that Taylor ended up. We went through a number of discussions with the city on how to best achieve it, moving it to the backside in the new addition zone of the building, staging 4 cars there, et cetera, et cetera. All that would still be true. What we anticipate in the traffic study, again, would kind of prove this out, is that the ATM traffic demand is going to be far less than, and certainly more sporadic than a teller, especially if we can reduce or expand the teller capability. You're going to move more customers over to that exchange. The way the bank history is, and this would be part of that study, is their customer base and what types of interactions is that customer base seeking. You may recall from the original design, our ATM was proposed to be in that back upper diagonal landscape bed. back there. In fact, if you zoom, if you see where all the lanes come together on the bypass lane, the diagonal part of that, if you'll put your cursor on, I'll guide you. Yeah, right there. That you see a canopy dashed in just over the arrow that's in that diagonal lane. That's where the ATM was originally planned to be. They never installed it. That was a part of the original plans that were approved. But that obviously would interrupt the bypass lane concept here. And it almost over saturates the vehicles in the back part. So you could actually end up trapping or causing challenges with traffic in the back portion of the site. So replacing the teller window is our current suggestion. It's a practice that's known by the property, but it basically anything that has to do with the customer to teller exchange is all happening on that south window right now. The drop box, the teller window, what is the equivalent of ATM interaction since they don't have one, is all occurring down there. We're pulling a big portion of that to this north side. So we would keep that as an ATM spot on the south side.
Okay, where people are coming in now, correct?
Correct. So the only thing that quote changes on Main Street is the existing exit drive that's on the south of the tree moves to the north of the tree.
So you're not changing the entrance drive?
Not the entrance drive. Correct.
Okay. So you're going to have one on Fifth Avenue as well as the same one on Main Street?
Yes, the entrances to the site remain as they are today.
Okay, because I hear you saying that, that ATM or new positioning of the ATM will possibly limit the traffic, but what if it doesn't? Because that is a huge backup there now. I guess extending it or adding the pavilion for the tellers will help, but what if you have still a backup at the ATM? I don't know.
Well, the one thing about that spot, and I hate to put so much weight in a traffic study because it is just a study, but I think the reality of what will play out is there's not a way to fudge the stacking to that. It is what it is. You get the 4 cars and that's it. You can't have a fifth. So if someone sees that stack up, they're having to move around and either come back again or do something different because there's no way to cheat.
This, what I'm about to say has nothing to do with you or Anderson Brothers right now, but you have the traffic backup going into Anderson Brothers and you got the traffic backup going into South State, which is bad.
Because they're going into their teller on the backside.
Yes,
and it queues. Does it queue from the upper parking lot and that Main Street entrance?
Correct.
So they're both two-sided queues.
And there is no way to get out of that one.
No, there's no bypass lane.
Yeah. So, I guess that's a question for me as well, but I guess that'll be part of your traffic study. And when you come back to us, correct?
It will.
Okay.
Yes. And, part of there may be 2 stages of this that we would be bringing forward with discussions with you and the other folks of the city, where the ideal scenario for the bank so far in the feasibility study is to do it as we described, convert the teller to an ATM and construct the new teller pavilion on the north side. It's kind of those 2 combined. There are obviously sub iterations of that deal with the exit drive width and what happens with the prior teller window. We're not touching the night deposit box. It stays where it is. So it's really a question of, can we use what's already exists, per the prior project, a window, a means of transaction at the bank at that location, ATM now, or is the suggestion per whatever comes out of the traffic study to investigate other options for not using that as a transaction zone. I guess the one question is, we would leave that because I guess it's existing and there's no requirement to take it out, is the night deposit would stay. So the queue line stays, but it's probably all well understood that that's probably the least used type of transaction
Correct.
that the bank has. So probably no worries there. The question is,
The ATM.
right, we would need a permit to build the ATM.
So are you trying to get past that?
No, not trying to
Okay.
get past it, trying to explain, I guess, what I'm talking to myself and envisioning talking to the bank too. The hope is to do it as we described it, to convert it to an ATM. If there is some resistance to that, it's not like we can say, well, we'll just leave it at what's existing and move on. Well, the teller window is moving. So the question would be, is the suggestion that because we have to, build construction drawings and seek permits to actually install an ATM, there's some resistance to the idea of an ATM. Let's explore other options. Is that what I'm hearing?
For me, it is, just because
Okay.
if you can fix it while you're fixing things, whether people pack up there or not, you would be preventing the possibility of that if they saw that the 3 teller lanes were full and then they start coming to queue up at the ATM. Because I don't mean to keep saying South State, but that's what happens at South State. And then at least you have an exit lane to where now people can get out. But
Right.
it's a mess, and so that busy street, you've got people backed up going, east, west, and then you got packed up people coming east on Main Street. And
Well, I think that what this is doing is helping me. Yeah, I'm sorry. What this is doing is it does help me define a very deliberate focus of the traffic study. We'll want to really dig into the adjacent properties, South State, hours of operation, peak load there, peak load here, even go down the street to the bank on the other side of further down Main Street. So I think it helps us define what we all need to know the answer to. What is the likelihood? And it'll define the width of the exit. It'll define the options, I think, on the south side of the bank and what would work. Nobody wants to set up a scenario, and the bank would be leading in this statement, where customers are frustrated because they can't get to where they're trying to get to, or it creates frustration of people honking horns and doing things on Main Street because the traffic's not flowing. So it's in everybody's best interest to get that right. We'll do that with the traffic study.
I just want to jump in real quick. This is Troy. Nice to see you, Mr. Timms. I
to you.
Appreciate you
Mr.
putting.
I know. Thank you, Heather. You can laugh at that. I'm laughing at it.
I appreciate you putting the effort into this. I don't really have any issues really with the layout. And even, as we're talking about the ATM, if that was backed up, it does not look like you can go around a person that's at the ATM, correct? Yeah, that's a single lane.
No.
And so if that was backed up and you were going to turn in, say, coming from away from downtown towards downtown, then most likely you're just going to take a left at the light and go around the building on 5th and then into the parking lot. So you can avoid that at the same time. So really, that's a dedicated ATM lane. It's not an entry to the bank or the teller pavilion. That's actually
which is how it works today, right?
Yeah.
Today it's a dedicated teller lane. That's what happens as a teller now. It is a dedicated teller lane.
So really, in Heather, what you're talking about, it's really only if there were 3 or 4 ATM people backed up. It's not everybody else coming to the bank.
No, I'm just picturing like it is now, because that's still a driveway. That's still where people can turn in. And
but if it's ATM dedicated, you shouldn't be driving in that lane anyway. You can just go around 5th. I mean, there's another way to go,
Yeah.
the more correct way.
Therefore, the signage will have to definitely come into play.
Well,
Sure.
ironically, this is the nice thing about this traffic study. Sometimes we're having to do studies based on fictional or yet to be built conditions. This one's built today. It has been operating this way for the last 3, plus years. So we have data on transactions, quantity of transactions, peak times. They'll be able to study it firsthand. There's not much difference between a stacking of a teller and a stacking of an ATM when it's a dedicated lane either way. And so today they'll be able to determine how does a dedicated lane of some transaction work, and how does it impact traffic flow coming into the site, trying to navigate Main Street. The one benefit obviously is that the exit lane is now moving 40 feet further away. So that makes it a little bit more manageable leaving the site relative to people trying to get into that transaction lane. But you're right, that is a dedicated transaction lane. It's not used to enter the site unless nobody's in it.
Or you want to avoid the traffic light.
Yeah.
Right. But if you avoid the traffic light, somebody's in that teller lane.
You're right.
You're waiting.
You gotta
You're
wait.
waiting.
And then the only other thing that I would hit on is I don't really have a problem with the layout. Like I said, it's just whether or not, I think I might have missed the history kind of the building next door and what was there versus, is it the 50-year
Sure.
mark and it's on the fringe? Can you tell me anything about the
Yeah,
history
sure
of
can.
that building?
If you go back to one of the early existing site photo slides. Yeah, here we go. Yeah, that one's good. So in this picture, we'll start on the lower right. You see the oak tree. The house is the structure right in front of you on the left side of the tree. The bank is on the right side. The bank technically has been occupying both structures for the last 3 years. They've had staff in the house. Prior to that, it was a flower shop. Prior to that, it was an architectural office. Prior to that, it was a flower shop. It's been a commercial structure probably for the last 40 years that I'm aware of, personally aware of. It was built in the 60s, if I'm not mistaken. I would need to confirm that. Prior to that, this site was associated with the building that is now the bank, which was a gas station in its early history before it became a commercial structure as well. We renovated the bank structure on the right 4 years ago, I guess, almost. Converting it, did some modest work on the interior of the house, but that was it, mainly finishes, and it's just been occupying staff. They've had some recent challenges on waterproofing and some other mold and some other things that have been, or at least just musty conditions. The bank is not interested in investing more money in a structure that's not really accommodating their needs. So I think it's a question of what happens with that structure going forward. It's best suited serving the bank rather than, say, another tenant. Parking limitations on that site would restrict really adding any more parking. So you run into a battle of what can truly exist in that structure. It's really working well to have a single tenant on that site. It's not large enough for enough parking to operate more than one. There was another structure behind the bank structure, going back before we did the bank structure. It had 3 tenants in it. Downtown Alive was actually in it. We had a barbershop in there, or beauty salon in there, and miscellaneous over the years. So that structure was torn down at the time. It had served as a out parcel or out building to the flower shop during prior to that was in the house. So I hope that gives you a little of the history. It's been quite some time since it was a residence.
And so the bank owns all the property immediately behind
Well, the bank has a land lease on all of this property. My mother actually owns all the property, but the bank is stewarding the property now.
Did you disappear?
I'm
Troy.
still here.
No,
I'm here.
Troy.
No,
Okay.
I'm just letting it all seep in. So I guess, so the only, like I said, I'm okay with layout of everything. I just want to make sure that if we were to determine that this building would be demolished, that, that's the right decision, in the long run. The only comment I have about the proposed plan is actually related to the existing bank, and just that in the new proposed plan, the exit lane, current exit lane goes away. So now that you've got between the oak tree and the bank, you've greened that in.
Yep.
So you have a van accessible spot and then one other spot that are fairly deep into the property without real reason. I think before you could have circulated around the bank, without
it's one
getting back on
way.
the main road.
You could if there was no traffic, but it's a one-way exit only lane that comes out of the back towards Main. There's really no intent to have traffic go, upstream. It's
Yeah,
actually
so the only
you could
the
do
only-
it, but it's not intended or designed that way.
the only comment that I would have then is really, just to add, you could add some landscaping right up against the building and push those spots back toward the street a little bit to soften. There's a lot of impervious hardscape right in front of the bank.
I would love to actually do
Yeah.
that. The reason why they are pushed that close to the building is really a discussion with DOT during the first phase of the project. These spaces are there because they pre-existed with the buildings that existed there before. Obviously, this is also a sloped site, so accessible entrance on the rear gets quite challenging with the slopes that exist on the backside of the building. So this was what landed as the result. Give as much backup space so that no one's backing up into the pedestrian sidewalk or the traffic on Main. They have the ability to kind of maneuver a little bit before they turn to get back out onto the main street, or use the teller lane to get out. There's actually a little width to, if you can look at the zoom in on the teller lane, there is a quasi, and it's only what the property allowed. Oh, I'm sorry, on the existing teller lane on the bottom. There's a quasi bypass lane there. It's real cozy. It only works if there's one or two cars in the lane. Once you get that third car, it pinches too tight to get around. But what we've seen happen on the site is if there's only two cars in the lane and they are parked reasonably close to the building, you can get by as a bypass. So we have seen people in the front spaces pull around the side and leave, even though there may be one or two cars in the teller lane.
For an easier exit.
Yeah, it doesn't
Right.
work with 3 or 4 cars in the lane though.
Yeah, opposed to pulling straight out on the main.
Right.
Yeah.
So those were DOT, I guess, negotiated, if you will, spaces, primarily out of the need for an accessible space on the zero entry level of the property or the building. We're over 3 feet up on the back.
Yeah, well then my comments would really just rest on, if the property to the north is truly demolish worthy. But I have no plans with the proposed plans.
Problems.
Well, it tells me what we need to submit for the next round. We'll do more history gathering on the existing structure and have that better prepared for you. Apologize for not having it today.
I mean, it's not ever been a really beautiful building. I mean,
No,
we just
it
need
hasn't.
to make sure. But I mean, Troy, that's within our purview at this point. Do you need that history?
I would like to see it. I think it would help in order to justify, a decision moving forward.
Okay.
Mhm.
So, if you wouldn't mind just having that for us next time you come in
Can
front
do.
of us.
We will
Any-
provide.
Any other comments? Anyone?
I just had, sorry, go ahead, Duck.
I just want to say that I want to thank you for, as usual, y'all do a lot of extensive planning, and that's good. I appreciate
Well,
that.
thank you. Appreciate that. It helps make it a lot easier for all of us, doesn't it?
Yes.
Yes.
My last comment was just about, I'm just curious if the bank customers, when you're going in and out of the bricked over pathway on Main, out towards Main, do you have very many people actually use that door? Is that the main entrance for foot traffic, or do people typically use the back? I would be curious, just because as Troy was saying, there's a lot of hardscape there, and I feel like I'm always seeing people like drive in, like you said, using the bypass lane. It's sort of a big, just like hornet's nest of people and pedestrians.
Yeah.
So I just, from a pedestrian safety standpoint, I don't know if, I'd be curious to know about foot traffic. And with the bed that's like kind of got a cut in with like some bushes in your plan, I don't know if you could like extend that bed out to sort of make that walkway more protected to avoid people from cutting that corner quickly. I don't know. Just like I said, but back to what Heather said about all the cars going through and it being confusing. I just get worried for people using that front door on that bricked over path. And if you had some, you know, hedges, bushes that make it show you that this is not just like an open parkway to, you know, cut the corner on. Just a suggestion. I don't know if that's
no, it's a great comment. We have the one bed, as you can see, just south of that main entry of the existing building, just below that paver path. That is intentionally following a radius over to the little sidewalk section that we've got adjacent to the first parking space. For the very reasons that Troy just mentioned, is when these parking spaces are in operation, the two front ones, it's nice to have an escape valve that stays on property and doesn't try to get out in the main. It gives you an exit out over to Fifth Avenue. So this was, again, part of the DOT discussions on the first phase. That is hardscape, but tactile paver change or material change for a reason. It's that way to identify it readily to drivers of cars that this is a pedestrian zone. Be careful that you're crossing it, but you can cross it just like you would a crosswalk. So there's more nuance to this than we discussed, but that's why that's really set up that way. I'm all in favor of exploring ways to get more landscaping in those areas for sure. But I did want to point out that the design of that entry and those parking spaces was carefully coordinated, if you will, or choreographed with DOT input in phase one of the project. It's not intended to have any scope in this area, but I think if we can make a small move here and there, we're certainly welcome to add that in.
And I'd be curious if I was DOT just to ask the question, like, would Anderson Brothers want to sacrifice that non-handicap spot, making that a larger handicap spot, you know, and then you only have the one handicap spot in the front. I don't know. I mean, just ideas to help make it.
Yeah, it's a good question.
I mean, if it's just, yeah, then you really would prevent maybe some of those issues.
Yeah.
That is a good question to ask. It's a very
okay.
valid.
Well, anyway, thank you so much for your time today. It's really fascinating.
She's got good questions. That's because you took the one I was going to ask also about the pedestrians, because I'm like, how do you make them? I mean, I realize that the exit is already there, but you're adding to coming into another exit and you're taking, you know, that pathway away. Obviously the sidewalk will still be in there, but I needed to ask about that too, because it's a little further back than what they see now. The pavilion would be further back. So I don't know, people just don't pay attention when they're walking. Or driving.
No, they don't. And I think the nice thing about it being further back is you have more notice. You know, when somebody scoots out behind the building, now you don't really have a whole lot of notice that somebody's coming up that drive before they're on top of you. Yeah. With the teller, you actually can see someone driving from the back of the site through, even if they were shooting through. So you have much more visibility in the new design. And that's why we pushed the pavilion back candidly, rather than keeping it forward, is to allow adequate staging of cars forward and back, but also just to give much better visibility. It needs to feel like it's over in the landscape back there and not, quote, on Main Street. To one other thing on that, on the existing entrance paver area, I really think that the idea of maybe giving up a space, they're giving up 2 for this teller as it is. We may be able to, salvage one somewhere on the site as we look at it closer. But I think that's an interesting way to further enhance the aesthetic along the street, enhance the pedestrian experience along the street, and not to mention safety, which is even more important. So we'll definitely talk through that with them and see if it has a adverse impact on their, obviously, they would have 3 fewer spaces than they're allowed to have by zoning. Is that okay to their operation? But it may be. So it's an interesting idea.
Where exactly would you propose to put? You want to do the whole surface in the brick pavers? For
Pave
where
it
the
over it.
Teller Pavilion is going to be?
Well, we don't know that yet. It's way too early in our design effort to know. We are suggesting that anywhere under the large, there's 2 obviously feature specimen oaks in the front. Within the drip edges of those would be our first candidate. So it basically means from the front edge or the Main Street face of the pavilion to Main Street would likely receive pervious pavers. From there back, we may extend the type of paving we already have in the property, but that would really be defined by the true design study, which would begin, in the next phase.
Just first instinct, we have allowed that in some cases. Shine Cafe near the library, I believe she used permeable pavers too. So I think we have used that.
Anybody else?
I had just one question. Sorry, Mr. Timms. Is the ATM going to be built into the side, or is it going to be out in front of where the teller is?
It's already
It
there.
would be, well, the ATM's not there. The teller
right.
is there. There's a teller window. It would be recessed into the structure. So there's basically flush where the teller window is now. It would occupy the panel, the interactive panel would be in that same plane. Since that particular spot would be shifted inside to accommodate the digital, we would have room to, house the body of the ATM inside the building.
Gotcha. I just wanted to make that clear. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't.
That's a good point.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't want to project it out and push the cars further out.
Off the side.
Yep.
Okay,
As
so
an Anderson Brothers customer, it's very, very exciting to see this happen.
See, you're one of the stakeholders. This is the official stakeholder meeting.
you got a good one. All right, so there's nothing we need to vote on per se, so we'll just look forward to hearing back from you when we hear back from you, I guess.
Yeah, we're hopeful that they'll initiate the true design through construction documents in the coming weeks, months, whatever. They're getting some preliminary pricing together with some contractors, and if that all looks good to them, we're hopeful they'll proceed. So this is helpful information for them to have as a basis for that decision making there. So we certainly appreciate all your time today.
Ditto. Thank you.
It's great to see everybody too.
Bye. See you soon.
Thank you.
Bye.
Heather, do you need a motion to adjourn?
Well, we still have public
Oh, we have
input.
all the other stuff. Okay. It's getting
Think
so
we'll have
late. I
anything.
was like, this is.
I don't think we'll have anything, but go ahead.
Yeah, go
Public
ahead,
input. I don't see anything. Do we have any board input? Staff input?
Yeah,
The only thing that I had was that Quattlebaum Awards. We were able to get all of those delivered. It took a little bit of time, time constraints and trying to get everybody's schedule, but the mayor was able to personally deliver all the awards to all of the award recipients. And that presentation is going to be viewed at the council meeting on February 15th. So I just wanted to give you guys an update on that.
Is there a way that, I mean, like, would you have that so we could view it or no?
Well, it's just really, it's going to be slides and a PowerPoint presentation, but I'll be happy to, when I get it done, I'll be happy to let you guys.
Or
send
do
it.
we usually do you usually do that for us or no?
Well, we don't normally do it this way because
That's okay.
normally what happens is they get the awards actually at a council meeting, but because, you know, of COVID and limiting interaction, we did it a different way. So this is actually the first year that we've done it this way.
Yeah, because I mean, even if we wanted to go see it at council meeting, you can't see it. It's ridiculous how they're having to do council. You got to stand out in the hallway if you want to be there to support somebody. Because we had to go for Conway Downtown Monday night, or we didn't have to go, but I went. And, you know, we're just all standing behind Hillary, and you have to wait in the hall until you're called. So you can't hear anything. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's sort of frustrating, isn't it, Jamie?
Very much so. Absolutely. Yeah, we said it gets kind of loud.
Yeah.
I've
Jamie.
waited a couple of hours before to
Yeah.
go in and present, so I understand.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll be glad to you know, send you guys the pictures that are going to be in the presentation. I can definitely do that.
Yeah. I mean, we've already voted on it, but just to remind us. All right.
Absolutely.
Anything else?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions about the last meeting, but I'll wait till next time.
No. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
You
No,
sure?
go.
Yeah.
All right, it's about the building on Fourth Avenue we talked about. The, you said it was out of our purview now?
Which one?
Where Goldfinch is?
Yeah, yeah, I know what you're talking about, the new Goldfinch building. Yeah.
Yes. Mhm. Didn't we approve the bank sign just a little while ago on the corner up there? What used to be BB&T?
You're talking about First Citizens?
I don't know what it is now, but it used to be BB&T.
No, he's talking about the use Crestcom. Just at the intersection of 378. Doug.
Yeah. Right beside the county building, voting building.
No, I don't believe so. I know they went for a variance maybe a couple of years ago, but no, didn't go to
I did
CAD.
some there. Debbie came in from the sign company and showed it, but maybe I'm
Yeah, I
wrong.
think I know she came in about Anderson Brothers, and then there was some bank downtown on Main Street.
There was CCNB,
Yeah,
Coastal Carolina
CCNB.
National Bank. Yeah. I'm pretty sure they did that one too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't remember anything out that way near the voters registration. I wish we had more of a say.
I think the CCNB was the most recent, but I
Yeah.
don't remember anything out of the 378 location either.
Mm-mm. But I mean, you know.
Yeah, I think that the CAB purview ends right there where Palmetto Chevrolet is, that corner right there. Because remember when they were coming in and painting all their buildings, there was one building that they were also going to be repainting, but it wasn't in the CAB district. It was just outside.
Yeah.
So that right there, that intersection is your cutoff on 4th Avenue.
And
And then-
16th and 16th, right, is our other cutoff.
That's right. Yes. Mm-hmm.
All right, what's the other?
On 3rd Avenue, it's First Citizens Bank, and then on 2nd Avenue, it's the old county courthouse.
Well, so that's you're saying what he's asking, because so we do go to First Citizens Bank.
Yes, yes,
Then-
you go to First Citizens, but Beatty is over. Beatty is further over.
It's the
Beatty is
next
on the
step.
other side of the old county courthouse. That's where Beatty Street is.
Am I thinking of a different First Citizens Bank? Is there one downtown now?
Yeah, across from Joe Hibachi is First Citizens Bank.
Okay, that's what you're thinking, Doug. Yeah.
Well, I thought we did one on the corner out there what used to be BB&T.
No, we did do this First Citizens one, but that was a while back. And that is, I keep forgetting that's on the corner there. Okay, what
Well,
was the
I
other
just-
question?
I'll just ask anyways, what is the reason? Is it is out of our purview because it's, pretty close to town.
It's not identified as being in there's certain boundaries, and I don't know when they create. It used to be that everything went to CAB, but
Yeah.
you really don't want to do that. You
No.
have, your meetings would last a whole day. That's how
I
busy
know.
we are.
I've been there.
But I don't know why they changed it, but it's limited to the historic districts. So that's where they've kind of pinpointed the areas, is the downtown historic districts.
That's probably why they changed it, just for what you said. Duck apparently has been in some of those that were a whole day. So,
Oh, yeah, I have.
Oh, okay, so you remember, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was before my time. I just could not imagine personally having to
Oh,
do
it
that.
was fun. It was
I mean,
fun.
did you see Doug asked me if I saw the article about the Five Rivers Friends? And they said that, we were a group of members who took our job very seriously. And I said, well, was that said sarcastically, or was that said nicely? And he said, well, I think it was nice. And I did read it. And I'm like, well, I can't really tell what context that was in. But I thought that was very interesting that that's Joe's parents.
Yeah.
Joe Henderson.
Yeah.
I want to think it was nice.
Yeah, it was nice. All right, Doug, you got anything else?
Yeah, Jamie, your front porch is looking good.
Thank you. They got the rest of the handrails up today. It does look a lot better, and it's in a lot better shape than it was.
Yeah, it is.
Looks
It
really
is.
good. All right, so before Jacqueline makes a motion, next meeting is February 24th. All right,
Okay, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Bye, love.